My best friend of 20 years confessed she'd been sleeping with my husband, but it wasn't the affair that destroyed me. It was finding out how long everyone else in our friend group had known. It happened at Whitney's birthday party, the kind we'd thrown 100 times before. Wine, cheese boards, and the same 6 people who'd known each other since college. We were in our late 30s now, comfortable in our routines, comfortable in our lies, apparently. I'd noticed my best friend Laurel acting strange for weeks, avoiding eye contact, making excuses to leave early from dinners, but I'd chalked it up to stress from her new job. That's what 20 years of friendship does. It makes you trust when you shouldn't, makes you ignore the red flags because surely someone who'd been there through everything wouldn't betray you like that. My husband Garrett had been distant too, working late, taking calls in another room. His phone always face down on the table. I'd confronted him twice. Both times he'd kissed my forehead and told me I was paranoid. "We're fine, babe. I promise. You're just stressed." I believed him because I wanted to, because believing him was easier than facing what my gut already knew. The party started normal enough. Whitney's husband grilled steaks on their back deck while the rest of us sat around their fire pit. Someone put on our old college playlist. We laughed about the same stories we'd told for 2 decades. The time we'd gotten lost driving to the beach, the semester Laurel had dated 3 guys named Chris. Normal, familiar, safe. Then Laurel pulled me into Whitney's guest bedroom around 10 p.m. Her face was blotchy, mascara smeared down her cheeks. "I need to tell you something," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I can't keep lying to you anymore. I can't do this." My stomach dropped before she even said it, the way her hands trembled, the way she couldn't meet my eyes. "Garrett and I have been sleeping together." The words hit like ice water. My ears started ringing. "For how long?" I managed to ask, my voice sounding far away. She looked at the floor, twisted her fingers together. 14 months. 14 months. Over a year of holidays, birthdays, girls' nights where she'd looked me in the eye and lied, where she'd hugged me, asked about my day, pretended to care. I felt my knees buckle, but she caught my arm. "I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you so many times, but what?" I said, my voice breaking. She started crying harder, mascara running, nose red. "Everyone told me not to. They said it would destroy you, that you were better off not knowing." Everything stopped. The music from outside faded. My heartbeat was the only sound. "What did you just say?" She looked up, realizing her mistake. Her eyes went wide. I didn't. Who's everyone, Laurel? Who the fuck is everyone?" She wouldn't answer, just stood there crying, shaking her head. I shoved past her and walked back into the living room on legs that didn't feel like mine. 6 faces turned toward me. Whitney, her husband, our friends Brody and Cassandra, and Garrett, holding a beer, laughing at something on his phone like nothing was wrong, like our entire life wasn't crumbling. "Who knew?" I asked the room. My voice sounded surprisingly steady. Silence. You could hear the grill hissing outside, someone's phone buzzing on the counter. "How long have all of you known my husband was fucking my best friend?" Garrett's face went white. The beer slipped from his hand, but he caught it. Set it down slowly like he was moving underwater. "Babe, what are you—" "Don't," I said, my voice shaking now. "Don't you dare call me babe right now. Don't you dare act surprised." Whitney stood up from the couch, her wine sloshing. "Maybe we should all just calm down and answer the question," I said, louder this time. My hands were shaking. "Who knew?" I looked at each face. Cassandra's eyes filled with tears. Brody stared at the floor. Whitney's husband examined his hands like they were the most interesting things he'd ever seen. Cassandra looked at her husband Brody. Brody looked at Whitney's husband. No one looked at me. That's when I understood. All of them. Every single person in this room had known. They'd sat across from me at dinners, celebrated my birthday 3 months ago with cake and presents and cards about how much they loved me, hugged me and told me I was important to them, all while knowing, all while watching me be the fool. "How long?" I asked again, softer this time, quieter, defeated. Whitney's voice was barely a whisper. "Since last summer." Last summer. That meant they'd known for nearly a year. 10 months of lying to my face. I'd hosted them for 4th of July, made my famous potato salad, bought sparklers for the kids. We'd gone on a weekend trip to the lake house together in August. Garrett and Laurel had shared a kayak and I'd laughed, taking photos of them splashing each other like children. My friends had watched it happen and said nothing. I'd cried to Whitney in September when Garrett seemed distant. She'd hugged me and told me all marriages go through rough patches. She'd looked me in the eyes and lied. I'd asked Cassandra in October if she thought Garrett was acting weird. She'd said I was overthinking it. Another lie. Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, my birthday in March, all of them knowing. "The lake house trip," I said slowly, pieces clicking into place. My brain working through memories, reframing them with this new horrible information. "That's when you all found out, wasn't it?" Cassandra started crying, full body sobs. "We saw them," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Brody and I went for a walk after dinner and we saw them together, behind the boathouse. They were—" She couldn't finish. "And you didn't think to tell me?" My voice sounded hollow, empty. She shook her head. "We didn't want to ruin the weekend. Everyone was having such a good time. The kids were happy. We thought maybe we were wrong. Maybe it was innocent." "Did it look innocent?" I asked. Silence. Did it look fucking innocent, Cassandra? No, she whispered. It didn't. I felt like I was underwater. Everything sounded far away, muffled. You didn't want to ruin the weekend, I repeated. So instead, you let me make s'mores and play charades and take family photos while my husband was sneaking off with my best friend. You let me post those photos on Facebook with captions about how grateful I was for my people. We confronted them that night, Brody said defensively. We told Garrett he needed to end it or tell you. We gave him an ultimatum. Clearly that worked out well, I said. My laugh sounded hysterical even to my own ears. Really great job there. Gold star. How many more times did you confront them? How many more chances did you give them to do the right thing? Garrett finally found his voice. Can we please talk about this at home? This isn't the place for— This isn't what? I snapped, turning on him. This isn't the place? These people already knew Garrett. Everyone in this room knew except me. What does it matter where we talk about it? My voice was rising. I couldn't control it. They all watched you make a fool of me for 10 months. Laurel emerged from the bedroom, still crying, her makeup completely destroyed. Everyone turned to look at her like she was a bomb that had just walked into the room. Whitney's husband actually took a step back. I'm sorry, Laurel said again, her voice small. I never meant for it to go on this long. I kept trying to end it, but what? I interrupted. But you kept accidentally falling into bed with my husband? Oops, how did that happen for the 100th time? I'm weak, she whispered. I know I'm weak. I know I'm a terrible person. You don't get to play the victim right now, I said. You don't get to cry and have everyone feel sorry for you. Not this time. I turned back to the group. How did it start? I want to know everything. You all clearly know, so tell me. Laurel twisted her hands together, her rings catching the light, the rings I'd helped her pick out years ago. Remember when I broke up with Mitchell? I nodded. That was 18 months ago, right after Valentine's Day. She'd been devastated, showed up at my house at 2 a.m. crying. I'd let her stay in our guest room for 2 weeks while she recovered, made her breakfast, held her while she sobbed, listened to her process the breakup for hours. Garrett and I would talk late at night. After you went to bed, you always fell asleep so early and I couldn't sleep and he was still up and we'd just talk. In the kitchen mostly. Sometimes on the back porch. He was so kind, so understanding. He really listened, you know? She looked up at me with red eyes like she expected me to understand, to sympathize. One night we kissed. It just happened. We didn't plan it. Things like that don't just happen, I said. My voice was shaking. You made a choice. You made a choice to sit in my kitchen with my husband after I went to bed. You made a choice to accept his attention. You made a choice to kiss him, and then you made a choice every single day for 14 months to keep doing it. I know, she whispered. You're right. I'm so sorry. But she didn't look sorry. She looked relieved. Like finally telling me had lifted a weight off her shoulders. Like this was about her guilt, and not about my devastation. Garrett stepped toward me, his face pleading. It meant nothing. I swear it meant nothing. It was a mistake that got out of hand. I love you. I've always loved you. Don't, I warned him. Don't come near me right now. Don't touch me. He froze. I turned to Whitney, my oldest friend, the one I'd met freshman year of college when she'd asked to borrow my notes for psychology class, the one who'd held my hair back when I had food poisoning sophomore year, the one who'd been my maid of honor, who'd given a speech about how I'd always been there for her through everything. You threw this party knowing, I said. My voice was quiet, but everyone heard me. You invited me here tonight knowing I was the only person in the room who didn't know my life was a lie. Whitney's face crumpled, fresh tears. I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you so many times. Every time I saw you, I almost said something, but Laurel begged me not to. She said she was going to end it. She kept saying just one more week. Just give me one more week and I'll tell her. And then another week would pass and she'd ask for more time. One more week for 14 months. I said flatly. 60 weeks. She asked you for 60 more weeks and you gave them to her? I felt tears on my face, but I wasn't sobbing. They just ran down silently. When were you going to tell me, Whitney? At your next birthday party? Were you all just going to keep letting me be the idiot forever? We didn't think of you like that, Whitney's husband said quietly. He'd always been kind. I'd known him for 15 years. He'd taught me how to grill the perfect steak, how to pick out good wine. He'd helped us move into 3 different apartments. Then how did you think of me? I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it. He had no answer. I looked around the room at the faces of people I'd loved, people I'd trusted with everything, my secrets, my fears, my dreams. Did anyone else know? Cassandra glanced at Brody, then back at me. My sister knew, she admitted. She saw them at a restaurant in the city, that Italian place near your work. She called me to ask if you and Garrett were separated, if you were seeing other people. The room started spinning. Cassandra's sister, Rebecca, someone I'd met maybe 5 times at family gatherings. She'd known before me, too. She'd probably told other people, probably discussed it with her husband, their friends. How many people knew? Who else? I demanded. I want names. I want to know everyone who knew my husband was fucking my best friend while I walked around like an idiot. The silence told me everything. More people knew, probably a lot more. I'd been walking around for over a year, the last to know. The joke everyone was in on except me, having conversations with people who were probably pitying me or judging me or laughing at me behind my back, wondering how I couldn't see what was right in front of my face. I need to leave, I said. The room was too hot, too small, I couldn't breathe. Garrett reached for my arm. We should talk about this. Let me drive you home. Let me explain. I yanked away from him. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. I grabbed my purse from Whitney's entry table, found my keys, my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped everything. Behind me, I heard chaos erupt. Voices overlapping, Garrett yelling, Whitney crying, Cassandra trying to calm everyone down, Brody's voice saying something about how this was all Laurel's fault, Laurel screaming back. I didn't care. I walked out into the cool night air, got in my car, sat there for a moment with my hands on the steering wheel. I drove, not home. I couldn't go home. The house I'd shared with Garrett for 8 years felt contaminated now. Like every room held evidence of their betrayal. Our bedroom, our kitchen where they'd talked late at night, the guest room where she'd stayed, the couch where they'd probably kissed. Maybe more. Oh God, maybe more. I drove to my sister's apartment across town, parked horribly, ran up 3 flights of stairs. She opened the door in her pajamas at 11:30 p.m., took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. What happened? She asked, leading me to her couch, wrapping a blanket around me even though I wasn't cold. I told her everything. The confession, the room full of people who'd known, the lake house, Cassandra's sister, the 14 months, the late-night talks in my kitchen, all of it spilled out in a rush, word vomit, ugly crying. My sister's face went through a series of emotions, shock, then anger. Her face got red, her jaw clenched, and then something else, something that made my stomach drop again, a look I recognized, guilt. You knew too, I said. It wasn't a question. She closed her eyes, let out a long breath. I suspected. That's not the same as knowing, I said desperately, needing her to be different, needing someone to be on my side. No, she agreed. It's not. But I saw the way Laurel looked at him at your Christmas party. And I saw the way he looked back, the way they stood next to each other by the tree, the way he laughed at something she said. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong. I told myself I was imagining it. Even my own sister, the person I'd shared a room with growing up, who'd held my hand during our mother's funeral 10 years ago, who'd helped me pick out my wedding dress, who'd been there for every important moment of my life. She'd had suspicions and said nothing. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. My voice broke. Why didn't you at least warn me? My sister's eyes filled with tears, real tears. Because I wasn't sure. Because I didn't have proof. And I didn't want to blow up your marriage over a feeling. What if I was wrong? What if I destroyed your relationship with Garrett and your friendship with Laurel over nothing? So you chose to say nothing, I said. You chose to let me keep living in ignorance just in case you were wrong, just in case your gut was lying. That's not fair, she said. Isn't it? I stood up, started pacing. Everyone decided what I could and couldn't handle. Everyone decided it was better to protect themselves and their own comfort instead of protecting me. You were worried about being wrong. They were worried about ruining weekends and friendships. No one was worried about me living a lie. That's not true, my sister said. We all cared about you. You all lied to me, I interrupted. For months. You looked me in the eyes and lied. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I need to be alone. You shouldn't be alone right now, she said. You're in shock. I'm fine, I said, even though I wasn't. Even though I felt like my chest was caving in, but I stayed, because I had nowhere else to go. I spent that night on my sister's couch, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows move across the walls. My phone exploded with messages. I watched the number climb. 53 texts by 2 a.m., 22 missed calls, voicemails piling up. I didn't read any of them, didn't listen. I already knew what they'd say. Apologies, explanations, justifications. The next morning, my sister made me coffee. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? Around 9 a.m., I called a divorce lawyer, the first one I found on Google, made an appointment for the next day. Then I called a locksmith, paid extra for same-day service. By 2 p.m., all the locks on my house were chained. By the time Garrett came home from wherever he'd spent the night, his keys didn't work. I watched him through the window, standing on our porch, trying his key over and over like somehow it would magically work the 10th time, then pounding on the door, calling my name. Please, please, just let me in. Let me explain. Let me fix this. I stood 5 feet away on the other side of the door and said nothing. After 20 minutes, he gave up, got back in his car, drove away. A stranger who'd shared my bed for 8 years. The messages kept coming. Laurel sent me 14 paragraphs explaining, justifying, and begging. I deleted them without reading past the first line. Whitney called 6 times, leaving voicemails about how she was sorry, how she'd made a mistake, how our friendship meant everything to her, how she'd been a coward, how she'd do anything to make it right. I blocked her number after the 6th call. Cassandra showed up at my house with flowers 2 days later, rang the doorbell for 10 minutes. I watched her through the peephole, watched her cry on my front porch, watched her finally leave the flowers and a card and drive away. I threw the flowers in the trash without reading the card. Brody sent me an email with the subject line, "Please let me explain." I moved it to trash without opening it. The divorce moved quickly. Garrett didn't contest anything. Guilt made him generous. Or maybe his lawyer told him not to fight. Either way, I got the house, the car, and most of our savings. $247,000. Enough to start over. Enough to buy my silence, maybe. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted it done. Wanted him gone from my life legally, officially, permanently. Laurel tried to show up at my work 3 weeks after Whitney's party. Security escorted her out after she caused a scene in the lobby, screaming that she needed to talk to me, that I had to forgive her, that 20 years of friendship meant something. My boss pulled me aside, asked if I needed time off, if there was a safety concern. I said no, went back to work, focused on spreadsheets and emails and anything that wasn't my imploding life. She sent letters after that, real physical letters to my house. I recognized her handwriting on the envelopes, threw them away unopened. She sent gifts, a photo album of our 20 years of friendship, our trip to Ireland, her wedding where I'd been her maid of honor, Halloween costumes, New Year's Eve parties, all of it trash now, contaminated by betrayal. I donated it all to Goodwill without looking through it. She even showed up at my sister's apartment once. My sister called me. She's downstairs crying, asking me to convince you to talk to her. What should I do? Nothing, I said. Let her cry. My sister paused. She looks really bad. I think she might be having a breakdown. Good, I said. And I meant it. 3 months after Whitney's birthday party, I ran into Cassandra at the grocery store. She saw me first and froze, her hand on a shopping cart. Her face went pale. For a moment, I thought she might run, turn her cart around and disappear down another aisle. Instead, she walked toward me, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "Hi," she said carefully, testing the waters. I nodded but didn't speak, just stood there holding my basket with eggs and bread and milk. Normal things. "I know you probably don't want to hear this," she continued, "but I miss you. We all miss you. The group isn't the same without you. You should have thought about that," I said, moving past her toward the checkout. She grabbed my arm gently. "Please, can we talk? Can I explain?" I looked at her hand on my arm, at her face that I'd known for so many years. Her eyes were red. She looked like she hadn't been sleeping. "There's nothing to explain," I said. "You all made your choices. Now I'm making mine. We were trying to protect you," she said desperately, her voice rising. People were starting to stare. "By lying to me for a year?" I pulled my arm free. "That's not protection, Cassandra. That's betrayal. That's choosing your own comfort over my reality. Don't pretend this was about protecting me. This was about protecting yourselves from an uncomfortable situation." I walked away, paid for my groceries, drove home, cried in my car in the garage for 20 minutes before I could go inside. 6 months later, I got an invitation to Brody and Cassandra's anniversary party. 15 years of marriage. The invitation was addressed to just me. Not me and Garrett, just me. Like they were acknowledging the divorce, accepting the new reality. I threw it away without responding. A year after that, Whitney sent me a Christmas card with a long note inside about how she'd been in therapy working through her mistakes, how she'd learned about herself, about boundaries, about what real friendship means, how she understood if I never forgave her, but wanted me to know she was sorry, that she thought about me every day, that she missed me. I kept the card. I'm not sure why. Maybe as a reminder. Maybe as evidence that I hadn't imagined it all. 2 years after the birthday party, my sister told me that Laurel had gotten engaged, not to Garrett, to someone else, someone she'd apparently met a few months after everything exploded. "I thought you'd want to know," my sister said carefully over coffee, watching my face for a reaction. I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even curiosity about who he was. Just empty. "Thanks for telling me," I said, and I changed the subject. The friend group fell apart without me. According to my sister, who'd gotten this information from Cassandra's sister through some chain of gossip, they'd tried to maintain the dinners and parties, but it wasn't the same. Too much guilt. Too many elephants in the room. Too many inside jokes that involved me. Too many memories that I was part of. Eventually, they stopped trying, stopped pretending they could just move on like nothing had happened. Whitney and her husband moved to Portland about 18 months after everything. A fresh start, my sister said, away from the mess they'd made. Brody and Cassandra got divorced about the same time. Apparently, the guilt had created cracks in their own marriage. The lies about my situation had made them start questioning what else they weren't telling each other, what other truths they'd been avoiding. Funny how that works. Garrett tried to reach out a few times over the years. Birthday messages, holiday texts, each one apologizing, explaining, wanting closure, wanting me to tell him I forgave him so he could feel better about himself. I never responded, not once. Let him wonder. Let him sit with the uncertainty. Let him live without closure, the way I'd lived without truth. Laurel sent me a wedding invitation 3 years after Whitney's party. A cream-colored envelope with embossed flowers. Formal. Expensive. I stared at it for a long time. I don't know if it was a peace offering or an act of cruelty. An attempt to show me she'd moved on. That she was happy. That she'd found someone who loved her despite what she'd done. Or maybe she genuinely wanted me there. Wanted my blessing. My forgiveness. I didn't attend either way. I heard later through my sister that Laurel had cried when she saw I wasn't there, that she'd apparently hoped my absence would make everything feel unfinished, that she'd wanted closure too, some grand gesture of forgiveness, some movie moment where I showed up and hugged her and told her it was all okay now. I hoped she spent her whole wedding day thinking about it, wondering if I'd gotten the invitation, wondering why I didn't care enough to even decline. 3 years after everything happened, I started dating again. His name was Bennett, and he worked in architecture, designed office buildings and museums. He had kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and he didn't push when I said I had trust issues, didn't demand my full story on the first date, didn't try to fix me or save me or convince me that not everyone was like my ex. On our 4th date, he asked me about my friends. Do you have a close group? It was an innocent question. Normal conversation. I don't really have any, I admitted. I had to walk away from all of them. I expected him to ask why, to dig into my past, to want all the gory details. Instead, he just nodded, took a sip of his wine. That must have been hard. It was, I said, but it would have been harder to stay. And he didn't ask anything else, just accepted my answer. Moved on to talking about his sister's new baby. That's when I knew I liked him, really liked him, because he didn't need to know everything, didn't need my trauma to make sense of me. We've been together for 2 years now. He's met my sister, my coworkers, the new friends I've slowly made through book clubs and volunteer work at the animal shelter. People who didn't know me when I was the wife who didn't know, who don't see me as a victim or a cautionary tale, who don't know about Whitney's party or Garrett or Laurel, who just know me as I am now, and that's enough. Last month, I ran into Whitney at a coffee shop downtown. I was waiting for my latte when I saw her sitting by the window. She looked older, tired, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before, gray in her hair that she hadn't bothered to dye. We stood there for a moment, neither of us knowing what to say. The barista called my name. Whitney stood up slowly. You look good, she finally offered, her voice quiet. Thanks, I said, taking my coffee, getting ready to leave. She twisted her cup in her hands. I think about you all the time, about what I did, what I should have done differently. I thought about ignoring her, about walking away like I had with Cassandra, but something made me stop, some need for her to understand. Why did you keep inviting me to things? I asked. After you knew. Why did you keep pretending everything was normal? She looked up, surprised by the question, like she'd expected anger or silence but not curiosity. Because I didn't know how to tell you, she said. Because I was a coward who didn't want to be the one to break your heart. Because I kept hoping they'd end it and then I wouldn't have to tell you at all. Because I'm selfish. So you let me break my own heart instead, I said. When I found out the way I did, in front of everyone, you let me have that moment of humiliation because it was easier for you. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I've said it 1,000,000 times, but I know it doesn't change anything. I know sorry is worthless. You're right, I said. It doesn't. I started to leave, then turned back. One more thing she needed to hear. The worst part wasn't the affair. Garrett was weak. Laurel was selfish. I could have forgiven that eventually. But all of you? You were my family. You were the people I trusted most in the world. And you chose to protect yourselves instead of me. You chose your comfort over my reality. That's what I can't forgive. Whitney stood there crying as I walked out of the coffee shop. I didn't look back, didn't feel guilty, didn't feel satisfied either, just felt done. That night, Bennett asked me if I was okay, if running into Whitney had upset me. I told him about the conversation, about what I'd said. Do you think you'll ever forgive them? He asked. I thought about it for a long time, longer than I usually did when people asked me that question. I don't think forgiveness is the point, I said finally. I think the point is that I survived something that should have destroyed me, and I came out the other side knowing exactly who I can trust. And who's that? He asked. I smiled. Myself. 5 years after Whitney's birthday party, I'm sitting in the home I bought with my divorce settlement. Bennett is in the kitchen making dinner, some pasta thing he learned from his Italian grandmother. My sister is coming over later for game night with some friends from my book club. Normal people, kind people, people who tell the truth even when it's hard. I have a life that's completely different from the one I had. Smaller in some ways, quieter. I don't have the big friend group anymore, the standing weekend plans, the group texts that blow up your phone, but it's mine, and it's built on truth instead of lies. Sometimes I think about that moment in Whitney's living room, standing there asking who knew, watching the faces of people I loved refuse to meet my eyes. It still hurts. I don't think that ever fully goes away, but I've learned something important. The people who love you don't get to decide what's best for you. They don't get to choose your ignorance for your own good. Real love tells the truth even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Real love respects you enough to let you make your own choices with full information. Last week, I got an email from Laurel. Subject line, I owe you this. I almost deleted it. Hovered over the trash icon for a full minute, but curiosity won. The email was long, pages of explanation about her therapy, her growth, her understanding of what she'd done, how she'd hurt me, how she'd betrayed our friendship, how she'd been selfish and cruel and chose momentary pleasure over 20 years of history. At the end, she wrote, I don't expect you to forgive me. I haven't forgiven myself. But I needed you to know that losing you taught me what real friendship is supposed to look like. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be that person for the people I love now. You deserved better. You deserved the truth. And I'm sorry I was too much of a coward to give it to you. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop. Maybe someday I'll respond. Maybe I won't. But for now, I'm okay with the silence. I'm okay with the life I've built from the ashes of the one that burned down. I'm okay with being the person who walked away. Because staying would have meant accepting that I was worth less than everyone's comfort. And I finally learned I'm worth more than that. The affair didn't destroy me. The betrayal didn't destroy me. What could have destroyed me was staying in a life where everyone else knew my truth except me. But I didn't stay. I left. And that made all the difference.